Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final edition of GBC Live for October. This is Zach. We've got Chris Johnston on from Outdoor Bros. If you have not seen his videos, I've got a link below in the description. Basically, it's a lot of great information for people that are just getting into cycling, the people that are really looking for the next step. So very enjoyable videos and really does a fantastic job on production work, which kind of means that I need to up it a little bit somewhere here. Before I bring everyone in, a couple quick announcements. If you saw yesterday, it was teasing our last sentence of the year. Full announcement tomorrow, but on the 23rd, we're going back to Ciclavia. We'll be doing a little bit, well, the whole route is only 4 miles on Melrose. We will be starting in Frogtown at 10 Speed Coffee, which recently opened, and we'll be going up to the Hollywood sign as part of this whole thing, and a little bit of history along the way. And then on December 7th, we will be doing our year end for the 3rd year in a row at Maverick Cycles. Great little shop. Very few places in LA is like this. It really combines coffee, eating, and cycling at the same time. And it's a fun little loop. If you've seen our videos on it, 7th Street loop. Oh, just so much rocket fuel going down there. Last thing I have to talk about, this hour tomorrow, I will be in Folsom doing Uncle Frank's Folsom Rodeo Cross. If you've seen the pictures from the Radivis, Eric Matthew, who we had on, it's pure chaos. What am I going to be doing in there? Well, I'll be wearing a costume. I'm a little disappointed. I asked for a gravel bike CA uniform, and it was a little bit too literal. So if you can figure that out, you should have no problem finding me. I will be in the first of 2 races. They're not races. Anyways, let's bring everyone in. Vic and Chris. So hello and good evening.
What's up?
Hello.
Yeah, a lot of going on. And we kind of started talking a little bit about this. How's Halloween decorating coming along? Are you just getting into it, or have you been like spending the last 3 months fine-tuning your home?
So I have my youngest daughter, her birthday's like at the end of September. And so the rule is that we can't start decorating for Halloween until after her birthday. So we're locked into like a 30-day window. So yeah, we pulled everything out on like September 30th. And yeah, we've got ghosts and rats and bats and spiders all over the place. So that's fun.
Yeah. We're a little behind. I guess we've got 72 hours and we'll be cool.
It all comes together anyways.
Yeah, we'll get there. We've got tons of candy, so I guess that's the most important part. We won't get eggs.
Nice.
So first of all, Chris, tell us a little bit about your background with cycling and California. This is Gravel Bike California, so I guess it covers pretty much the whole gamut.
Yeah, so I started riding bikes, probably 15 years ago now. Back when triathlons were like a big thing. I had a friend that was doing triathlons, and I thought it would be cool to get a bike. You know, I grew up riding BMX bikes and stuff, never really that good, but just always appreciated a bike. And as I traveled, when I got older, we'd go to these really cool places and I'd see all these guys riding bikes around. Like I remember going to Vancouver and seeing people ride bikes up into the mountains and, into Seattle and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. You can see so much on a bike that you can't really see if you're hiking or walking. And, it's kind of better than a car, and it's also better than walking around. And so, yeah, I was just always drawn to cycling. So did the triathlon thing for a minute, and of course realized that I wasn't that great at swimming and I didn't like running. So of course cycling just kind of stuck. And I was the guy who used to like just spend hours on Craigslist looking for the used bike that I could, buy from somebody at a low ball offer, and then I could use it for like a year and then sell it for what I paid for it. And just kind of started going through bike after bike and slowly upgrading over the years. And then probably around 2016 or so, I kind of started riding with some guys that were doing like longer road races and stuff. And then really got like the real like expensive bikes, and was still kind of playing that game of trying to find used bikes and whatnot. And then, got into gravel riding around 2020, 2021, and just been doing that ever since. A little bit of mountain, a little bit of gravel, and a little bit of road.
Oh, you're kind of late to gravel, 2021.
I was, I fought it for a little while, and I just, I don't know. I had a mountain bike, and I like convinced myself that a mountain bike was sufficient. I was like, there's really no middle ground. I don't need a gravel bike. And I had a friend that was like, hey, you should check out like this open upper. And I was like, all right, cool. And so, I did what I do. I like searched everywhere to find one of these used frames and found one and bought like a Cervelo Aspero, stripped the parts and, built up this upper. And I don't know, it's kind of off to the races. Like I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I love being outside. I love being outdoors. Right. And it was just nice to get off the road too and away from cars and just kind of be out in nature. And it was a blast. So kind of stuck.
Nice. The upper is a really light bike too, so that probably helped.
Yeah, agreed. That was a great bike. That was one of the first bikes that I was like, all right, you can do a ton with this bike. This can be your road bike. This can be your gravel bike. This can be just about everything. And I love that bike. Great memories of that bike.
Now, I guess we're going to get to the headline quickly because it is a very big topic, one that Vic is super involved in. And this is about the trend of wider tire clearance. And I think my bike, the Segla, is one of the first ones that kind of went that far. And I absolutely loved it. And when we were at Sea Otter last year, we were looking like some companies were just starting to turn the corner. But I'm really curious to what we're going to see in the next few months. And so I'm just wondering, is this a trend that you think is going to stick?
You asking me or you asking Vic?
Oh, no, not Vic. Vic's not going to get the answer.
Oh, definitely it's going to stick. So we want to know
about that.
No. Okay, you go, then I'll go.
Yeah. No, you go. Okay, I'll go. I think look, I think it's a trend that is going to stick, but I think it's a very small segment of the market.
Yeah.
I think that for the bulk of riders out there, I don't think that you really need clearance for 2.25-inch mountain bike tires, right? And so I think that a lot of us who are riding gravel, at least here in Southern California, are spending, 5 miles riding on paved trails to get to dirt, and then we're 5 or 6 miles on dirt, and then we're another 5 or 6 miles home. And so really 2/3 of your ride is spent on paved trails. And so I think you kind of go into this like, hey, what's the best for my situation in my scenario? And I don't know if everybody needs super wide tires. I'm not saying it's not a good thing. It's a blast. I've ridden the Allied Able. I think that's a great bike. I don't know. I don't know if everybody needs clearance that big.
No doubt. Nobody needs clearance that big. Nobody. But when you have it, okay, I have an Able, and it helped influence me on the Able, believe it or not, with your review. I checked the date from your review and when I got the bike, and it's like it matches up. You weren't the only thing, but you helped. But when I ride my Able with the gigantic tires on it, I feel like a superhero, like I'm unstoppable on the bike. And I don't feel much slower on the road. It depends on your tires. So I'm running Vittoria Peyotes now, and they have that ridge in the middle. And of course, they're not like a road tire, but they're way faster than you would think. So I don't have any problem on the road. And then when the gravel comes or a single track comes, I'm like, see ya, I'm gone.
So what size tires are those? What are they, like 55?
They're 57s. They're 2.25 mountain bike tires. They're XC tires. So they're not super heavy. They're like 700 grams as opposed to like 1,000 gram, big chunky tire. Mm-hmm. So even with those giant tires and a bag and my out front bike mount, my bike still weighs 19 something pounds.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
I mean, and it rips. And so no one needs tires that big, but when you have them, it's incredible. So for most of my rides, I run 50s. I run the Schwalbe G1 Pros in 50, and those are super fast.
Yeah.
But there's still nothing like the mountain bike tires. So that's
if you had to ride one tire on the Able, would you ride the 57 millimeter tire or would you ride the 50?
If I were stuck to one tire,
one tire.
If I could only ride one, no, I'd ride the big tires.
Would you ride the big tires? Okay.
Yes, because I have the most fun off road. I would compromise the road riding, the speed on the road, to have more fun on the single track and on the gravel for sure.
And how technical is that single track and that gravel that you're riding?
I did Mammoth. I did all the trails on Mammoth, and I was with Bill and Swanee on their XC bikes, and I was hanging. Now they're not like Tinker Juarez or something, you know. You know, they were hammering on one's on a Super Caliber and one's on a Scott, and I'm right there on my Able on this long drop bar bike, you know, on the trails in Mammoth.
See, that's where I think Mammoth tough.
Trails, the ride trails, uptown, downtown, those trails.
Yeah, see, I think Mammoth area, riding all of that like pumice stone sand and that single track and all those things that I take my Epic Evo on, I think that's where you want those big, huge, fat tires. Like that's 100%. Where they really shine. I think for Mammoth Tough, you know, the guys that were running 50 millimeter and wider tires, I think they had a much better experience. Yeah, for me, I don't know if that's like a daily driver setup, you know, for me and my riding, like I think 45 is probably just about right. But that being said, you know, yeah, I guess if you had the Able and you could run 50 mil tires and have a little bit of extra clearance, like that's always nice too in case 50, you get into mud.
50 is the sweet spot for all around for sure.
Sure.
For all around for sure.
Yeah.
But like you said, that you can't, if you put 45s on the Able, it looks ridiculous.
It looks like it skipped leg day, right? Like it just looks so weird.
45s, and 45s used to be huge.
Yeah.
You said that in your review, and you're right. It doesn't, I would never put 45s on it. And that's the smallest that Allied says you can run because the bottom bracket will be too low if you run anything smaller than that.
No, for sure. On that bike, I think if you're under 50 millimeters, like you may be on the wrong bike. Like it just doesn't seem to, you didn't buy it for the right reasons. So yeah, I mean, is that trend here to stay though? I don't know. I like, if you look at the bikes that are coming out in the future that I think will be out in the next year, I think a lot of them are going to be right around that 50 millimeter mark. Maybe you're going to clear like 52s, 53s, but I don't think that we're going to see many go into that Allied Able territory. I think they've kind of captured that segment of the market and they're going to run with it. And the guys who want those massive tires, I mean, that's their bike, right? And I think
you
they're
could
going to sell
squeeze
the
it
heck out
into
of
a
it.
Mog already. You could do it in a Mog. And the RE Schaefer has it now too. That new RE bike has it. It's not as racy as an Able, but it will fit 57s. So
yeah, see, I don't know the RE bike, but I've had a Mog, and the Mog is an interesting one because I think that is like really right in that sweet spot. I think Envy was actually kind of ahead of their time with that one.
Way ahead. Yep.
I mean, and they've really been able to ride a really good wave because that's a pretty sporty bike and it's got just the right amount of tire clearance to where, you know, if they were to do a Mog version 2, what would they really improve on? Maybe a little bit more tire clearance for the guys who really want to stretch it. But then again, you got guys who are running, you know, 45s on it and they love it. So I don't know.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so a couple weekends ago, Vic and I, we went up to Sonoma. We stayed with Mig Crawford as we followed his mega hopper up and down the coast. And you know, Ted King was there, Rob Britton. But, you know, the first day as we were kind of following them, it was mostly road. We had some dirt in there. And I brought 2 bikes. One was my Lauf, and then the other one is my 2016 Niner RLT. And I was telling you, Vic, that I had 45s on there. I was wrong. I had 42s. And I was like, you know what? This isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be out here. Part of it is I love it. I had the Redshift stem on there. And I think that for a lot of those small vibrations, like that makes a big difference, makes the bike feel firmer without like really losing too much handling. It makes it feel like a little bit like a road bike. But I'm just wondering if maybe these other upgrades to a bike might be way more worth it rather than shucking your frame and starting all over.
What do you mean, like a fork or something?
Well, like I said, the stem is pretty good, but you know, the thing that I liked too was, you know, we had some pretty big climbs there on pavement. I was like, I'm so glad I'm not on 55s.
It's a lot of tire.
Huh?
It's a lot of tire. 55 is a
It
huge
is.
tire.
It is. So
I was
mean,
on
like,
50s. I was on the 50s and they were fine.
So I don't know, Chris, if you have like any suggestions for other supplements rather than just the tires themselves. Like, you know, I know some people like the Future Shock there on specialized bikes, but just do you think that there's any better bang for your buck on just spending on a new frame?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of having, you know, front suspension, you know, even just a small amount is kind of intriguing. But I really think that everything kind of boils down to tires. I think you try a bunch of tires until you find the right tire, and you maybe swap out tires based on what it is that you're riding. If you're doing Mammoth Tough, for example, where you and I rode, Zach, it's like, you know, you put a wider tire on. And if you're doing something that's maybe local around here that's a little bit less aggressive or doesn't have a ton of sand, maybe you throw 42s or 45s on, depending on kind of, maybe it's mixed terrain or something like that. Or if you're doing BWR, San Diego or California, whatever they call it. And I think that'd be a little bit easier than, you know, putting a front suspension on or a new fork or something like that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of just trying as many tires as possible until you can get it right. I think it's a cheap upgrade, and, you know, eventually you kind of find one that works for just about everything. And I think it's fantastic. So, yeah.
Yeah, we got a couple comments here. Squeeze 50s on my Diverge.
Oh, yeah.
It works.
And to the point, yeah, exactly. If it works, that's awesome. And to your point about the Future Shock, you know, I've never been a huge fan of the Future Shock. I don't know. I've not had a Diverge. I always had the Crux. And so, you know, I only had tires to play with. I know I saw some guys were putting front suspension on their Crux, but I only had tires to play with. So I just kind of maxed that out. But man, if you can do it, like if you can rock the Diverge STR or one of those, and you love the Future Shock and it doesn't give you any problems. I think that was one of the issues with the first generation, is there were quite a few problems, but yeah, it could be pretty good.
Because of your reviews, I was this close to getting a Crux. I was because I love how light you can build it up, and you can put pretty big tires on it, not 57s, but big enough, especially
not
for the weight
57s. This time last year, I had a Crux with 2-inch tires on it, and I had right behind me. I was like, there was a night where I was like sitting with a razor trimming off of the tread off of the side of the tire because it rubbed against the frame, and that was about as big as I got on there. But it just rode really weird. So I think a 50 is probably the biggest that you want to go on the Crux.
Okay.
And I thought that was great. But
yeah, that's a great bike. Plus, I was thinking I could use that bike for cyclocross because it's so light. And that would be a good 1-2 punch gravel and cyclocross.
My whole idea behind that bike was really to eliminate basically my entire bike quiver. It was around, it was Sea Otter 2021, I think that bike launched, or 2022. And at that time, I just kind of finished a long road race that I do every September. And I was like, you know, it'd be really fun to just kind of ditch all of the road bikes and stuff and just ride a single bike that I could ride for road, for gravel. I could travel with it. And that was kind of the idea behind it. That was also the idea behind the upper. I just felt like the Crux was, you know, a little bit lighter, and I felt like it was a little bit more modern at the time. And I had two of them. They're great bikes. Keep waiting for a refresh.
Well, we did Anton Bigger Wheels. He rides 32s.
This guy rides 32s.
Yeah.
He's
and then I guess, this was a follow-up. And if you're watching on Facebook, just head over to YouTube if you want to comment.
I can answer that question if you want.
Sure, go ahead.
So the updated Crux, what I think, my personal opinion is, I think they're going to make it like the SL8, you know. Maybe there's a speed sniffer or whatever they call it, kind of more aerodynamic in the front. I think for sure it'll have integrated cables. Traditionally, I think it's followed the Athos. My hope is that it doesn't follow the Athos. I thought they were going to maybe discontinue the Athos. Again, just my opinion. I don't quite understand where that bike kind of fits into the market. I get that it's light, but it's just light. You know, I think if you want anything else, I think there are better options out there. So my hope is that it goes kind of more aero, And based on what I see with the Diverge, being that it has clearance for 53, I don't remember the specs off the top of my head. I knew it when it launched. I think you may see that the Crux may tap out at like 50 millimeters or 50. Yeah, probably right around 50. And I think it's just going to be really that fast gravel bike. And if you want something with larger tire clearance, that's going to be the Diverge. But that's my guess. Now, is 50 enough in 2026 when the bike would launch? Is that enough tire clearance to get people excited? I don't know. I don't know if the pendulum has kind of swung, and maybe it's going to swing back a little bit more towards that 50 millimeter mark. But that's my guess. It goes kind of the way of the SL8. It goes aero, maybe some drop seat stays, and we see integrated cables. And I think it'd be another really good bike.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, like how many companies are going to jump on it and how long it will take to reverse the trends, because we've only started, continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I remember when, like, once you hit the number 4, that was pretty amazing. And now that we're in the middle of 5s, and you might as well just ditch the metric system, is pretty interesting.
I thought 45s were insanely big just a few years ago. 45, that's enormous. Now they look skinny.
Yeah.
Now, another bike I want to talk about that you just reviewed was the Pinarello Dogma GR. And what's interesting is Vic has a Dogma, and not the gravel, but just how similar the geometry of the, because it's so distinct, like, looks. And I was wondering, like, when you're out there, does this feel too much like a race bike out there, or
so that's what I had at Mammoth Tough, and I think if I remember correctly, it has clearance for 45 millimeter tires in the front and 42 in the rear. Knowing that it was Mammoth Tough, and knowing that I ride in Mammoth quite a bit, I was like, I'm going to kind of squeeze 45s on the back and 45s on the front. So I put the Pirelli Cinturato Gravel M in 45 front and rear, because it came stock with 40 millimeter tires. And I thought, for Mammoth Tough, that's not really going to fly. I thought that I would feel like I was going to go over the bars more often. And I just looking at it, I mean, it looks like a Dogma, right? And when you ride it, it feels very racy. But I was pretty impressed by just how comfortable it was, and how I didn't feel like I was ever in a situation where I didn't have control over the bike. I walked away from riding the Dogma GR being pretty dang impressed, as I would hope that anyone would who rides a $14,500 bike. Like, it better be good.
Yep.
I think that seat post has, like, 8 millimeters of flex or something like that. And you do feel it. Like, it actually feels pretty comfortable. So I was impressed by that one. I was even more impressed when we hopped on the road. We had those road sections where we're riding along the 395 and riding out towards Convict Lake, or out towards the 395 towards Convict Lake. And, like, you could just kind of do, like, the puppy paws over the bars and just get in an aero position. And the thing was really, really fast. Like, it was mega impressive. So again, $14,500 bike, like, it should be really good. And I felt like that one delivered. Is that the bike for everybody? No, it's definitely not. And I think some will knock it for having minimal tire clearance in the rear. But again, it's made just, for a very small segment of the market. And for those who need it, I think it's a really good bike.
Aren't they pushing it as like Euro style gravel racing? Like the new Cervelo gravel bike only clears 45s, and it comes with 42s or something, slicks.
Yeah. It
comes with slick tires, the gravel bike. And so the trend
those Vittorias, right? Like 40 millimeter Vittorias or something?
Yeah. I think they're 42s. But they're 42 slicks on a gravel bike. It just looks like a road bike with fat tires.
Well, and that's and again, I also feel like bikes like the Dogma GR, like, they kind of should pull double duty for that price. Like, you should be able to throw the 40 millimeter Vittorias or those new Pirelli P0 Race TLRs, I think, in 40 millimeters.
40s,
And you should be able to roll up to a group ride, and you should be able to crush it on that group ride with your buddies. And then maybe you can take, like, a little detour and hit some light gravel trails and then head back home or something.
Yep.
That's where I feel like these bikes have a lot of value. And that, I think, as a consumer, and that's really cool. Like, I get stoked about that kind of stuff.
Now, if only it weren't $15,000.
Right. It costs like double my daily driver car costs. It's like, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
Well, just our friend Bill who also owns a Dogma as well, was looking at the Gravel. I know you've got a review coming up here, but and you have to spoil anything. But do you feel like they're? I know they like off a quick glance they look similar, but I know like in the back of the bike it's pretty different. And I'm just wondering, do you feel like there's a big difference between the two bikes?
Totally different. Like I would say that is like a Toyota Land Cruiser right there, and I would say that the Dogma GR is like a Porsche Cayenne or something, right? I know some people have knocked me in the past for bringing up car comparisons, but like
that's tough.
they are two totally different bikes. The Gravel F, as soon as you hop on it, I mean, it had 50s on it when I rode it, right? So it had bigger tires. It was also like a mid-tier spec. So if we're talking about the Dogma GR at 14,500, I think this was exactly half. I want to say the retail on this was 7,250. So, forced group set, heavier wheels, different tires, and obviously, different layup with the carbon. This felt like you could basically go to the end of the earth on it. It wasn't going to get you there the fastest, right? The Dogma GR was maybe not going to make it to the end of the earth, but it was going to get you as far as possible very, very quickly. This also has mounts for everything. So if you're bike packing or you're putting extra things on there for storage and stuff like that, this has mounts galore. And again, for the right person, this is a fantastic bike. For most people who are looking for a Pinarello gravel bike, like this is probably the bike to get because it has, wider tire clearance. It has a little bit more slack geometry. So you're going to feel a little bit more comfortable on the descents, in the chunky stuff. But, if you're Chris Johnston and your gravel rides are, 9 miles to dirt, 12 miles on the dirt, and 9 miles back home, the GR is probably, the better bet. So, but both were good. They're just, again, they're for different consumers for sure, based on your riding style.
But people are still racing this one though, right?
That's far. Yeah. That's what I understand.
We have another, well, we're going to keep shotgunning bike comments here at the bottom. A lot of questions here.
Sure.
But what do you guys think about the Factor Aludo? I'm really not, feels like what the crux could be. I'm not that familiar with that bike. I was wondering what your thoughts were.
That's a great question. Thanks, Scott. I was actually just emailing a guy at Factor last night about getting one of those. I think that's going to be a really cool bike. That is really kind of my style of gravel bike, right? I think it's pretty racy. It's pretty fast. Again, it could double as a road bike if you really needed it to. And I'm pretty stoked to try this one. I agree with you, Scott. I think this is probably where the new crux goes, right? You've got drop seat stays. I don't know what the aero specs are on this one. I'd have to look at like some white papers or something like that. But to me, when you look at that, I mean, just look at that. It looks like the stem might be slammed in the photos. That's a really good looking, aggressive bike. Almost to the point where if you really didn't know and you looked at that, you would mistake it for a road bike, right? So I think that thing's going to be, again, I don't have it yet. I haven't ridden it yet. I try not to put, like my thoughts on paper before I even get the bike and get a chance to ride it. But I am expecting some pretty good things from that bike.
Just visually, that kills the crux for me. It just looks awesome. That looks racy and awesome.
Looks rad, right?
I love the way that looks.
Yeah. That bike's cool.
Does Phil have one of those? Phil Guyman?
Maybe.
I know he's got
some. He's a Factor guy, right?
He doesn't. He'll have one soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I saw. Go ahead.
What's the tire clearance on that bike?
What I was reading last night, I think it's 47 millimeters. So again, it's in that sub 50. Maybe you're pushing 50 if you're really pushing the envelope. Because I think they have what's the clearance? They have to say that you can fit 2 millimeters on each side comfortably. So they kind of are conservative in that max tire clearance. That's the stated clearance, and then your mileage may vary. So if it's 47, guys are going to put 50s on there.
50s, sure.
And that's cool. And maybe that's the case. And maybe that's what it's designed around. And if that's the case, then awesome. It'd be great.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And well, do you think road tires should be engineered for 40, 50 millimeter width?
They already have that, the 48 Pirelli P0.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be awesome. I've ridden the 40 millimeter Pirelli P0 race TLRs on the Crux when I had it, and I want to put them on my Moots Route CRD. I think that's a really cool tire, and I think it's one of those ones that, like, once you try it, you're like, wow, this is so dang cool. I really just want to ride wider tires, because when you ride them, I think, you know, especially for us who have been riding for a while, you know, you used to ride a 21 or a 23 millimeter tire at 120 PSI, and you'd ride that thing and you would feel like you were invincible and you were fast as lightning, right? And now it was like 25, 28. And then all of a sudden guys are riding tubeless and dropping the tire pressure. Now we're talking about a 40 millimeter tire at 40, 45 PSI, something like that. I mean, a pretty low tire pressure, but it feels fantastic. It's the opposite of what you would think. You go out there and it's just really nice. You can have a great day and it doesn't beat up your body. It's awesome.
It's the total opposite of what I used to think, because like you said, you know, 23, 120 pounds, a 40 millimeter tire, that's like a cruiser tire, or, you know,
For sure.
That's you wouldn't put that on your nice bike. And now, yes, give me that.
Yep.
Tubeless, low pressure, the grip, the speed, the comfort is crazy.
Yeah. It is. It really is. I think you do notice that it is a lot of tire that you're turning, right? So if you hop out of the saddle to accelerate, you notice it. But as you're descending on a 40 millimeter tire, you've got a lot of rubber that's really hugging the road, and it's a dang good feeling. And then you go back to your road bike and you're riding, I don't know, I've got a Canyon Air Road right now with like 28 millimeter tires, which is the smallest I've ridden in a long time. And it just looks like a little toothpick that you're riding on. It's so crazy.
Yep. When I get off the Able with the 2.25s and get on any road bike, my tires look like razor blades.
Yep. For sure. You look down and you're like, dude,
tire?
where is it all? And you think about it, like if you're riding an Able with 55 millimeter tires or 57 millimeters, and I'm riding a road bike with 28s, I mean, dude, that's literally half the width. That's wild.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. And I've got the zip wheels, so the 32 internals. I can put some of my road rims inside the rim with so much space. And I did. I was like, look how wide this is. So yeah, it's great.
Yep.
You know, so when was it about a month ago, I guess, for that Vanderpool ride, I only take I've only ridden, and I love my road bike, but I only ride it once or twice a year, and it's a Cannondale Evo, and I love the fit of the bike. But I've got 25s on there, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, geez, that and my clamp brakes. I mean, people think I'm probably penny farthing out there. It's amazing how far these bikes have gone. But, you know, it's sounding like you may just not need a road bike anymore. It just comes down to tires and wheels. I mean, is there really that much marginal gains if you're just like buy an extra wheel set?
Well, let me comment on one thing. Number one, kudos to you for the 1 to 2 times that you ride your road bike a year. One of those was with Vanderpool, so bravo for that. That's great. Shout out to Zach. That's awesome. Well played. But yeah, so the way that I like to think about it is like, I think you can get like 90% of the way there on your like do it all bike or road bike. Like I have the new Scott Attic, not the RC Pro, which is like the one that Tom Pidcock rides, but it's the one that has clearance for like 38 millimeter tires. And I think it came stock with 34 millimeter tires. And so I think what you're seeing is you're starting to blur those lines between like an all road endurance kind of gravel bike, right? Where it's like the fast gravel end of the spectrum and like the more endurance-y side of the road. They kind of seem to be blending together a little bit. But where I feel like you can't replace your road bike is that you never can quite get that like tip of the sword, sharp handling and acceleration and climbing ability out of one of these kind of middle ground bikes. Like I think there really are multiple categories now. I think you have a race bike, which is like what we see in the tour, right? You got a Tarmac, you've got the Colnago Y1 RS, you have the Addict RC Pro, you know, the NB Melee, all those kind of like pro tour race bikes. And then I think you have this other category, which is what I would just consider to be a road bike. And that's your that's your Scott Addict with the 38 millimeter tire clearance. You've got bikes like the NV Fray that have clearance for like a 40 millimeter tire. That's what I think a lot of people probably should and will enjoy riding most, because you're in a little bit more of an upright position. It's easier on your body, but you just don't get that really, really sharp handling that we all know. Once you ride a race bike, a true race bike, and you've descended and climbed on it, it's really hard to get that feeling out of any other bike. As much as you might try, you can swap wheels, you put your MV45s on there, you can put your super light tires on there, you can get in the most aero position. You're never going to quite have that handling. So if you don't need that, then yeah, you could totally replace your road bike. But if you like that, yeah, you gotta have a road bike.
Is that more of a
geometry
thing? That's a geometry thing,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, because when I get, even as fast as and great as my able is, when I get on my Dogma after riding that, the Dogma feels like a rocket ship.
For sure.
It's like, wow, this thing is really amazing. Yep. But you can't compare those two bikes, but
totally. And that's what happened to me when I was like doing this experiment of like, hey, I'm going to have the upper and that's going to replace all of my bikes, or I'm going to have the crux and that's going to replace all my bikes. I would then go hop on my race bike and have like, oh man, this thing's like really, really fun. Like I love riding this bike. Like there's no feeling quite like that, So it's like you want to have, if you could have multiple bikes in multiple categories, like you want to have the best race bike, the best gravel bike, and then maybe the best mountain bike or something like that. But you can kind of tweak in between, but those are the categories in my opinion. And I think you're going to see a lot of bikes start to be marketed like that. You have a Tarmac that is a race bike. You have the Athos that is a little bit more of like a road bike, and then you have gravel bikes and everything else. So.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I don't understand this quiver killer mentality where you want to have one bike. Who wants to have one bike?
Yeah, I tried it. I convinced myself I could do it. I just
possible.
Yeah, every time I got to the point where I was like, all right, I'm gonna sell them all. Like this is it. It's like you're just missing out on a little bit on one end of the spectrum. So if, for example, if your gravel bike is your do-it-all bike, and let's say that it's an NV Fray that has clearance for 40 millimeter tires, it's pretty good on the road, but it's not amazing. It's not a race bike, and it's pretty good on gravel, but it's not like amazing like a MOG would be, right? And so you're just kind of stuck in this purgatory in the middle. It's like, what do you do? So you get it.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's a compromise.
It's a compromise, exactly.
It's just a compromise. I don't want that.
On both ends, there's a compromise. Yep.
Yes.
It's a bummer.
Sir. I was watching you. I was like, why would you want to do that? Like, I didn't know you. I'm like, why do you want to get rid of all your bikes?
I don't know, man.
Because you had the SL8, right? Or the SL7. And it was an awesome race bike. SRAM. I was like, yes, keep that bike. And you're like, I'm going to sell it and do the cross. I'm like, why?
I mean, that's just,
you don't look like you're hurting for money. Just keep your bike.
Yeah, I know. But still, it also boils down to like, how often can you ride your bike? You could have 3-4 bikes, and it doesn't mean that you have this endless amount of time to go ride them all, And so, yes, I get everybody wants to have multiple bikes, and it's so cool. And there's like the N+1, but man, there's also something to be said about having a bike that you like, that is dialed in. And when you hop on it, how every single input is going to play out on that bike. Like it just is great. And you think about muscle memory of just getting a bottle out of a bottle cage and putting it back in. And guys, I can tell you, having been fortunate to ride a ton of different bikes, like brands have been really cool and sending me bikes to test and stuff. Man, there are times where I'll be sitting fumbling with the bottle because I've forgotten the distance between, like all these different things that happen. And then I get back on my bike and it's like, oh, that's right. Like this is just, it feels like home, So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a ramble,
like home, but
there's no place like home, man. You want more than one?
Oh man.
Okay, we have a lot of questions here. Good job, everyone. One about the Loft Segla. Griff, I don't know if you had a chance to look at this bike before. What do you think the next generation of that frame will look like? I guess we should bring in Troy Templin for this one, but wondering if you have any thoughts on this bike, because we've had people on here. It's been a real divergent range of opinions on this bike, and you're welcome to go anywhere in that spectrum.
Because
I don't have you guys may have stronger opinions on this one. I don't know Laos as well, so I should.
No.
No, I don't. I haven't ridden them. Like I've just chatted with guys who have ridden them. I think they're really cool. Again, I think that's a smaller segment on kind of a bit of a one end of the spectrum on the gravel bike spectrum. And frankly, like that's not really. I'm happy to ride it. I'm happy to review it. But personally, if I were buying a bike today, that's not the end of the spectrum that I lie on, because I'm the guy who's out at 5:30 in the morning and back by 7, so I can get my kids off to school, and I got to be as fast as possible up and down those routes. So
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, that kind of like brings the question of when manufacturers are making bikes, are they trying to make them as racy as possible, or should we be working a little bit more towards comfort, better gearing, something that you don't have to be in supreme shape to really take advantage of?
that's a good question. If I were a brand, I would have a fast gravel bike, and I'd have something that can be kind of adventure-y, for the people who aren't that concerned with weight, who aren't that concerned about, getting from point A to point B as fast as possible. But I think you kind of got to have both, because I think that pretty much covers, 80-90% of the gravel bike spectrum as it is. So I think brands are doing a decent job of giving options. I think people sometimes want to knock brands for creating a bike and like, oh, who would actually buy that? Well, there's clearly, a market. There's, again, the Dogma GR to bring it up. You're creating a bike that has rear tire clearance of 42 millimeters. Like, there's somebody out there who looks at that and they're like, hey, that's perfect for me. And you look at the Gravel F and it's got even wider tire clearance. And I may look at that and be like, that's not the bike that I personally need for my riding style, but for somebody that's great. So I think brands are doing a pretty decent job of that. And I think, to bring in Specialized and the Crux and the Diverge, those are two bikes that I think cover a really broad spectrum. The Diverge STR, I don't know, maybe that's, a little bit different, but I think between those two bikes, you can cover a ton of different people and meet a lot of people's needs.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting because, looking at the bike industry, like alcohol, beers seem to keep coming up with like a new brand and style. West Coast IPA, all tons of things, the hard seltzers, and just thinking in terms of bikes, like there always has to be some type of small gimmick in there to try and get people interested. And now that I'm kind of riding a little bit more my rigid niner over the Lauf, makes me think that do we have enough? or are we always searching, I guess? Vic, I know your answer.
What's my answer?
Oh, you're continually searching.
I mean,
well,
Chris said it. I mean, there's plenty. There's a big spectrum. I mean, you can get a Surly, which is nothing like an Ally, and they're both called gravel bikes. So what is a gravel bike? Is it a slick race bike that weighs 19 pounds, or is it like a bike that's got mounts and racks and stuff all over it that you can pack and go all get lost in the desert for 5 days and not even take a cell phone and you'll still survive? Like, there's bikes that cover a huge spectrum. So if you look for it, it's out there. And there's all those bespoke builders that will build you anything you want. You just have to have some cash.
Yeah.
I had a Canyon Grizzle that was like $1,800. It came with GRX 10 speed and it had mounts and stuff all over it, which I never used. But that bike for $1,800 was a phenomenal bike and had clearance for 45s. It was carbon. I updated it a little bit. I probably updated a little too much. Like, I spent more on the wheels than the whole bike. I put DT Swiss wheels on it. They cost the same as the entire bike. But I mean, you can start at something like that entry level and upgrade, or you can start at entry level and then move up within that brand, or move to another brand that maybe is more aspirational to you. So there's lots of stuff you can do, right, Chris?
100%. I think that's a great point. I think sometimes, it's like when you watch car commercials and the car that you see in the car commercial is the one that's like fully decked out. It's fully specced out and it has the highest MSRP. Then you hop on the website and it's like, you can get the one that has like the lowest trim, and it's significantly less expensive. I think when people are getting into the sport, and even if we're really honest with ourselves, do all of us need like these insanely expensive bikes? No, we don't.
Nope.
Like, let's be real.
Nope.
Are they fantastic to ride? Yes, they are phenomenal, right? But if you're getting to the sport, it's a little bit intimidating because you're looking at it going, man, I've got to spend $5,000 or $10,000 to get a bike and get into the sport, and I got to buy all this stuff. And first, I would say number one, buy used. Like, I'm a huge fan of buying used, hopefully from a friend, maybe somebody you trust. And like I said, that's how I came up, when I was riding bikes before and buying them and buying them on Craigslist 15 years ago. It was like I would just search for whatever I wanted and try to find somebody. And now I get those lowball offers all the time, and I kind of go like, oh man, 15 years ago.
You know how it feels.
It's coming back, man. It's coming back.
Yep. Full circle.
But it's coming full circle. But to your point, like the $1,500 gravel bike, dude, you can get a lot of mileage out of a $1,500 gravel bike, and you can have a blast. And I mean, at the end of the day, what is the fun of riding bikes? For me, like it checks a lot of different boxes in my life, right? It's a social thing. It's a competitive thing. It's a fitness thing. It's getting out in the morning before anybody's awake and watching the sunrise. Does it matter if I'm on a $17,000 bike or a $1,500 bike? It doesn't matter, right? You can have an amazing experience on both. And I think that's what people need to realize. Like, there doesn't need to be this insanely high barrier to entry. Let's just all get, less expensive bikes and just have a blast and enjoy each other's company. Like, that's so fun.
100%. My mailman knows I have bikes. And the other day he knocked on the door. He says, hey, I just bought a Trek Damani. And he said, what else should I get? I said, nothing. I said, ride your bike. Just spend time on the bike. He goes, I don't need to get it. And I said, no, just go ride your bike. Don't buy anything else.
Yep.
And he was like, okay. Like, he thought he had to buy the bike and then buy like a crap ton of stuff. I mean,
I think that's the other thing. I think that's the other thing too, is like, when you buy the $1,500 bike, you can then upgrade, and you enjoy each individual upgrade along the way. Man, if you go straight to the top and you get the crazy expensive bike, you never really appreciate exactly what you have.
You don't even
know
when
you start out, right? You don't even know what you have, right?
No.
And that's one thing that's kind of fun, is like, man, you swap you get ceramic bearings or something, and some people are like, oh, that's a waste of money. Well, guess what? When it's one single component that you swap and it's on the bike that you ride 5,000 miles a year, you feel that little difference, and that's cool, and you appreciate it. But if you just go out and you just buy all that stuff, I just think you're missing out on some of the experience.
Totally. You're missing it completely. And you have no appreciation for it because you don't know what you have.
For sure.
You're getting thumbs up and you're like, great, I don't know what
sweet.
This is. It's silly.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us. This was a blast, and I feel like we only scratched the surface. So we'd love to have you back on again.
Let's do it. You guys are great. I feel like this chat went by really quickly. We could chat for hours.
I know. I'm guessing the Dodgers have already lost by now. So
let's hope not.
I don't know.
They came back.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Check out his channel. It's in the description. And we'll be back next week. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Good night.